6 p.m. Thursday, July 17th, Town of Grand Rapids, meeting with the fire department at the fire station. Regular agenda item, approve the minutes of the July 8th, 2008 Town Board meeting. 2014.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes to the July 8th.
Motion Dan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second Kathy. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Any opposed? All right, public comment period. People wishing to speak to the board will be limited to 2 minutes each. Public comment limited to a total of 30 minutes. Anybody wishing to speak? Sorry, I thought I turned this one off. How much yours up? Okay.
There's $10 we got coming.
Sounded like my ring. I'll tell you what I will do as we get into this is there's some questions that if we move along, keep moving along with the crowd here, I think we should be able to handle. I will entertain some questions that would go along. Is that fair?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a statement, please.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Grand Rapids Town Board, I've been honored to be a member of this fire department for over 30 years now. I'm the second most senior member of this organization. I have held and currently hold management position levels with the fire department. I've seen the fire department grow and change during this 30-year time frame. When I joined the department, the majority of the members were shift workers and worked primarily in the paper industry. With the paper industry, its employment numbers tumbling, fewer of our membership are working shift work and are primarily day shift workers, as well as seeking employment outside the Grand Rapids area. With this employment dynamic taking place, volunteer fire departments must reevaluate time of day staffing needs. This mirrors a nationwide trend that has seen a steep decrease in the number of volunteers available during the day. The fire service is no longer the horse-drawn fire department or the hook and ladder, a term from the 1800s. We are governed by state and federal mandated regulations, which have also drastically changed the way we operate before, during, and after our calls. Please remember that each member of this Grand Rapids Fire Department puts their lives on the line for our citizens when there is a call. Whether it's driving to the station, operating fire apparatus on the way to a call, fighting the fire, returning from the call, and then driving home. This organization is not a group of beer-drinking, fast-driving Keystone cops, but folks that care and have families and relatives. Please help us to continue to serve you and our community by positively supporting and working with the chief and officers of the fire department under a 3 to 5 year plan. Our community deserves the highest quality and the most efficient services from our fire department. The next time you hear a siren on the Grand Rapids fire engine, be assured that firefighters on board are fully trained and eager to help in any emergency. Thank you.
Okay, and your name for the record, sir, is Thomas Heiser.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak? Anybody else wishing to speak? If not, I'll go into item number 3, which is a discussion of the fire departments and the EMS 3 to 5 year plan possible on maintaining current status of staffing, equipment needs, response time, ISO ratings, community mutual aid. One of the things we wanted to discuss both with the board and the fire service is there a desire or a thought process that we should be outreaching, offering services to even far more reaching areas? You know, are we thinking that's something we should be looking at? There are certainly more and more communities that are having issues. There's certainly the desire from folks in Saratoga to consider some type of satellite facility that would be there. So I wanted to open up the discussion amongst everybody on that topic and then throw it out for a lot of other things. So thoughts?
Well, I guess, Mr. Chairman, when we talked about this, I guess, we've discussed numerous things in regards to the fire department. We're a department that is always changing. Things are coming and going, and I guess we just wanted to have a discussion with the board to see what they envision the fire department becoming. Obviously, like I say, it takes a lot of planning to accomplish the goals that we want for the community, what the community wants for the fire department. And without sitting down and having these discussions and determining what the future of the fire department is, and a long-term plan, as people have said in the past, that we need to have long-term planning for replacement of equipment, and all the other issues that have been brought out. I guess the reason I called for the meeting was to see if that's what the board wants to do. Do we want to start planning what we're doing, or are we going to continue to take it day by day and see if nothing happens today, we'll worry about tomorrow, or are we going to plan for the future to make sure that we can ensure that we have a fire department that's operational and functional and can serve the needs of the people that, currently right now we cover approximately 12,000 residents in the 3 communities that we are the primary fire service for. And that's not only fire, that's rescue, cats in the tree, everything you can imagine. Typically the first call, we have a dispatcher here, typically the first call, people that get called are either police officers or fire department. If it isn't a known law enforcement issue, the fire department is typically the first ones sent out on storms, things of that nature, and I guess we just want to have the discussion. Do we want to plan for the future to ensure that we have a fire department, or are we just going to continue to take it day by day?
One of the things that I see is critical is to keep working with the communities that we currently work with. We instituted a working agreements with Saratoga, Town of Grant. I think we're at year 3 of our 10-year, is that Judy? 3-year, 10-year plans. Those are approximately revenue generators for the town of 150, right around 150,000 a year. Those are revenues into us. It's time to talk about where we want to be 3 to 5 years down the road. Saratoga certainly would like to see something around the secondary fire station that would be able to support their needs. No discussions have been made. Village of Bremen is going through some difficulties right now with staffing. They've had ongoing staffing issues for probably 3 to 5 years now, and it seems to be not getting any better. We're paged every time they have a fire, and I think you guys outnumber them probably 10 to 1 or 15 to 1 sometimes as to how many people they are able to garner in. Their issue is no different than our issue, as Mr. Heiser related to the number of workers that we have that are now day workers versus shift time workers. Need to look at planning so that we can continue to keep a viable force. I think we're fully staffed, is that correct, Chief?
Yes.
To full membership. We have a few applicants coming in every couple of weeks or so. We see another one that might be some. From time to time we do lose. We lose officers that we had, not sure if he was an officer, but we had one recently just go to the city of Wisconsin Rapids as a full-time fireman. It's probably the 3rd or 4th, I'm gonna guess, over the years that we've had go out of our service and go into other services wherever.
21.
21 so far?
Yeah.
Interesting. So that tells you that the type of training process that we're going through to have top-notch firemen, and I want to give you my compliments on the training that you go through. I have been involved in seeing them from time to time. So where do we go? EMS is another growing service that we've provided. As of yesterday, was it 138, Chief? Calls that we've been on EMS already this year. Numbers keep rising. People in our community are getting older. More people fighting diseases that they're trying to stay at home as long as they can. Our services get required more and more of that. Fortunately, Bob, what's our count on EMS now?
We've got several people that dual role. I'd say real active EMS members, we got about a dozen right now.
Dozen right now? Okay.
Yes.
That's good. I see the amount of training that you go through. I want to commend the staff on the amount of dedication that they do for their training too.
Thanks, yep. Most EMS calls are between midnight and 6 a.m.
Yep.
So,
That's true. So, as far as a plan, we were able to find just recently a couple of samples, and I want to thank Mr. Heiser for finding these 5-year plans out on the internet, where Ross, Ohio is a very similar sized fire department with us, although they do run a lot more. They run ambulance and they do run some full-time, but we believe them to be for the EMS side of the service. Their number of calls that they do in a year are very similar to us. So I think looking at this and taking some time to study this, we could decide whether it's something that we want to do. I think the planning piece, the equipment changes, maintaining our ISO rating, maintaining our mutual aid agreements. Saratoga sees the benefit of the mutual aid agreements as when either us, Nakusa, Rome, or for that matter, Port gets a call into their community, all 4 departments are notified. We go. And again, that really helps as other communities that are in the same situation we are on daytime calls. Although I was pleased to see on the Bear Mill fire last Thursday, I believe the count was 23 firefighters that we were able to have out. I know some of you lost work hours. I think that's something I want to address to the board as we get that, because of lost work hours for doing volunteer service and getting a small supplemental pay back to you is sometimes a little on a negative side. So, comments, Dan?
if you
I mean, I see about 4 or 5 agenda items here. Are we just gonna tackle one at a time, or are we gonna just throw them all together? Or did you have a 5-year plan that you came up with, or what?
No, I didn't, I was busy last night and I kind of put one together.
Okay.
It's a long process, and I guess that's the whole point of this. You know, is this something that the board feels we need to have? Is it something that, you know, obviously, from looking at this township, I mean, you know, these are all very common problems all throughout the country. The volunteer service isn't what it used to be. People are not volunteering anymore. And I guess that's the thing that every one of these townships that we've looked at, or municipalities we've looked at. What is it gonna take? How are we gonna plan for the future to ensure that we have a volunteer fire service that will handle our needs in the future? And, you know, obviously, a lot of planning goes into this. You know, these are samples that we can take a look at, but, you know, I guess what I'm asking is this what the community wants? Is this what the board wants? I guess, like I said, I can sit in my office and plan for the fire department until I'm blue in the face. If the board and the community isn't gonna support what the fire department feels we need or what we came up with for a plan, all we did was waste a lot of time and energy. If we wanna have the fire department succeed, if that's a main goal of the community, we have to stick some time into this to determine what we have to do, so when a truck replacement comes up, it's not a big surprise to everybody, because we had a plan that said, you know, we've always said, we know that the truck lasts 20 years. Well, are you gonna plan to replace it at 20 years? If you don't plan to replace it, you have nothing. And, I guess that's what I'm asking, I mean, the different things on the thing, are we gonna look at staffing? We can't fix the staffing issue overnight. It's a matter of what is it gonna take to attract people to be volunteers? What possessed the 7 of us or 8 of us that are volunteers to become, what is it that possessed, the ones that are sitting at this table and the ones in the audience to become volunteers, and what possessed the other people not to be? What does it take in today's society to get somebody to volunteer their time to be on the fire department? And not just be a name on the list, be an active fireman that is going to, like I said, the other morning, I mean, people have work that they're required to be at, and they're choosing to go and respond, try to save the 26 machine at the beer and paper mill, instead of reporting to their job. Not everybody's willing to do that. If the beer and 26 machine burnt up last Thursday, I think we'd all be sitting here being, feeling pretty sad that we lost a major part of our community. And I guess, these guys are willing to do that. What's it gonna take to ensure that that is available 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now? If the community wants to go to full-time service, we need to make that determination to do that. But, like I say, that's where all of this stuff, the ISO ratings, is that something that's important? Do people care how much their homeowner's insurance costs? Do they want it to be cheap, or do they, if they don't care what it is, then it doesn't matter what the performance in the fire department is. If nobody cares how much their premiums are. If they want to have their lower premiums, you have to keep your ISO rating where it's at. That's what your insurance is based off of. So I guess that's what we're asking. Do we want to invest the time in the fire department to determine that it's still going to be here in 5 years or 10 years? Or do we want to just throw in the towel and let the cards, fall where they do? And I guess that's what I'm asking, is the community to the point where they're going to support looking at what is it going to take to ensure the fire department stays here?
Question?
Yeah, Don, is that what you're asking? Are you asking, is your department, are you asking in your assistance here, is that where you're going? And do you want a full-time fire department? Is that where you're beating
Absolutely
around the
not.
bush?
Absolutely not.
Well, you mentioned it.
No, I did not.
Well, you said, are we looking at you're saying that you have problems with staffing all the time, and if you had a full-time fire department, then I guess you wouldn't have problems with that.
If that's what you want to propose, is that
No,
we
I'm
have a
not
full-time
proposing
fire.
anything, but it just seems, let's get it out on the table. If that's what you're asking for, a full-time fire department, then,
I can tell you right now, Shirley, the way he spoke about that was not intent to indicate that we're looking at anything, any way, shape, or matter, a full-time department. We're looking to be able to provide full-time services to everything. And part of that is staffing issues, part of that's equipment, part of it's other pieces. There is no intent from myself as a chairman and talking with Don that we're looking to put a full-time department together. That's not the case. We need to address the issues, and I want to say we're looking at these issues before they come be problems. We know everybody else is having the staffing issue. We're still sitting with 50 too. But we know what's happening with beer, and we know what's happening with others in our community. We know what they're going through with less and less and less. So we're trying to be proactive in looking at how do we look at maintaining or retaining all these officers. It's just like the trucking industry, the turnover rate in some trucking companies is as much as 90%. That means 900 out of 1,000 drivers will turn over. But it's not the same drivers, it's those young ones that start and they work for 3-4 months and quit, 3-4 months and quit, 3-4 months and quit. And that's somewhat what we see is some of our young guys that come on, they get gung-ho, and then we lose them. A few months, was it a few years ago, Mike, with the lead of it, started a mentoring program. We think that was a mentoring program, a process that started to turn the light. We've got some guys that have gone through that, and they stay in that mentoring program, and they get excited about it, but then they get a job somewhere else, and they're gone.
Like out of the community?
Out of the community, they move or,
Or we've lost several full-time departments in the last few years.
And that's how I look at our department, we're a quality department. I mean, I've gone to schools at other departments, it's like, yeah, we got training this week, can you make it? Oh, yeah, okay, or not, don't make no difference. We do our trainings, they're important to us here. I'm proud to say that out of so many rookies that I've taken in, they're up in Ashland, they're out in Appleton, they're all over this. What does that say about our department and the quality of training that we do here? I think it's pretty good testimony to say, you know, how many guys you say are from, you know, Lincoln Fire Department or that have gone on to something else. I mean, we take pride in what we do, we take our training seriously, and we try harder and harder. You know, since the chief's been on, we've been doing some really intense training, and before it'd be like guys just say, oh, it's training night, okay, we get off the truck and we do this. And now it's like we're getting these guys wound up to say, you're getting off the truck, what are you getting off the truck for? Well, it's training, what are we training for? It's a fire. Okay, it's a fire, that's why we're getting off the trucks, that's why we're training as hard as we do. Same with the EMS stuff, we take as much stuff as we can get, and you know, sometimes we get criticized, well, there's so many guys there, there might be not so many guys there, whatever it is, but just to know somebody walked in that door, I've been on many first in through the door. Whether you're equipped to handle the full situation or not, it's when you are dealing with these people and they know, somebody's here, they're gonna help me. I mean, you know, time goes for, it's an extraordinary long time when you call in to say, my wife just had a heart attack, she's laying on the floor. Okay, we'll do that as soon as we can. Where are they? And as soon as they put down the phone, they're saying, where are they? So, I mean, we strive at doing that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
if I may add my 2 cents, I wasn't, you know, when Dan asked the question about like there's 3 or 4 items within this agenda item itself, but I would not expect or even want to have answers at the table today because a strategic planning process is, as the chief said, a very lengthy process. The health department goes through it every 5 years. It's a key component of us when we became nationally accredited. So I can see it as a value to the department to take the time, identify who would facilitate such a process, how would you get the community involved, and the value isn't even so much as helping to provide some kind of tools or some type of guideline for even future board members to come on board and to support the vision that the community has. We have our comprehensive plan that helps us to guide us in those who go in that direction. A strategic plan under public safety can do the same. But even more importantly is if I was a town board member in Grant or Saratoga, and I'm contracting with another agency or department, such as they are with us, I would want to know, where's my money going? What is your plan for my money? What is the vision for 5 years from now and 10 years from now? Why should I continue to invest in you versus starting up something on my own? So I see not only the strategic plan as being internally an asset for this town and for our community, but it's an asset and a tool we can use beyond that too. If we do want to expand and provide additional service to other people, we've got to be able to say, how are we going to use your money? And not worry that if the board changed entirely a year or 2 from now, and that board maybe wants to take a different direction, I think communities are owed, our town is owed to know what do they have in their public safety.
Mr. Chairman.
Let's go ahead.
Just wanted to continue, and since I came on, I definitely think there's a need for long-term planning, especially with the equipment and the trucks. I mean, we're looking at $500,000 vehicles out there, and just in going through the first budget process, just to come up with that when we do need a replacement, and it isn't just fire trucks either, we got graders, we got dump trucks, we got front end loaders. This should all be part of that large, I call it capital expenditures, and to go out and borrow the money every time we need one. Now we had the need to this time, and I know that's part of the the whole equation now. But a long-range plan to, and something's gonna come up in emergency situations, you may have to deviate a little bit. You know, it isn't set in stone, but that I think is absolutely a necessity. And just for the record, I am on the fire department too, so I didn't know if anybody knew that, so.
It's because you haven't got a shirt on.
That's right.
Bill?
Yeah, ever since I've been on the board, I've asked for a 5-year plan for the fire station, for the town, and we've come up with hired somebody. That's not my plan, to hire somebody to have a 5-year plan. But I just thought when we did the 10-year contract with the other municipalities, that's when we should have had what we're gonna do with that money, and set it aside for this and set it aside for that. We didn't do those things. And I wasn't on the board when we went to a full-time fire chief here, but what planning was done there? And I would think there was no planning done there. And I think at that time, that's when we should do planning. And then towns, I know, I've dealt with the Plainfield Fire Department when I was in another township, and we dealt with them. But we, as the town of Oasis at that time, we had meetings with those people. And we discussed these things. And of course, we, at that time, that was back in the 70s, when we didn't, the 2% dues were, do we have to give them or don't we? And well, it ended up the legislators. And that's what I think we have to do also, is work with our legislators, because at any time the state legislators can change things. I hear the talk in Madison all the time. And I don't know if when we went down to Wisconsin, central Wisconsin days, through the Towns Association, if we heard this, but legislators are upset about the fact that a lot of fire departments are within 3 miles of each other and they're completely separate. And I know we just made a move now that we're included in most calls. And I think we have to get legislators involved in this. And another thing is, think of why is the Buren Fire Department don't have volunteers, don't have people? Kelly was a supervisor at work, and at that time I was union president. And we fought very hard to try to get, just like you go out for jury duty, whatever you get paid at the jury, we would make up the wages, and we were very close, and I don't know where that is now. Do you think that Buren does not have the volunteer firemen like we do, or that they're there because they don't have good equipment, they're not a proud station, they don't get paid enough money? Or is it just because it's an older community and people are moving out? I think that's what it is. I really do. And my personal belief is, I think we should be part of the Buren Fire Department. I really do. And that should be in the planning. But I can't name the legislators right now, but I will get it. I know some legislators that are going for fire districts. You see a lot of them, where you take 4 or 5 fire departments and they're a district, and they're volunteer. So I think there is some planning should be done, but I think it should be done along with the 2 municipalities, along with Buren, and locally, meaning the city.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Kathy.
Bill, when you get those names of those legislators, can you also get us the name of the legislators who are voicing their concern that fire departments are located within 3 miles of each other? Are you referring to our local legislators, Julie and Amy and
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Can you get those names to me too, please?
Oh, sure.
Well, one of the things that, Bill's referring to, Buren, and there are conversations that Mr. Evenson and I have had, and as recent as last night. It's his thought process yet that he still needs some time to determine if they can maintain a good fire department, what he wants to do. I assured him that during their difficult times that they're having, that Grand Rapids will respond to their calls. It's probably 60% of the calls are gonna be to the mill, I'm gonna guess, because that seems to be where we tend to go. I assured him that I would keep our department moving that way. Assured to me that in the next few days, he'll be back to me with their thoughts, whether they want to sit and visit with the town of Grand Rapids. Go ahead, Bill.
Continuing on, the EMS or the first responders, I don't know what that was, but when they came on board, it was something we didn't pay for or something, and all of a sudden we pay for it. Not that I'm opposed to paying for it, but it seems like they just grew and grew and we included them in, so maybe something happened.
I think the preceding chief had even indicated to the board that with grant money, this could be a no-cost
Okay.
addition to the board, and that turned out to be not the actual truth.
And we
There's
have-
training costs and everything else that we had to cover. I mean, you just can't be an EMS without training, so, and that's where that ultimately went.
So-
There was an initial grant to get it started, correct?
Our annual EMS budget is $10,000 for labor and supplies, so out of what's our town coffer, what do we spend a year, 1.8 million or 2.4?
I'm not
something? So, I
having
mean,
an argument on
We're
that.
running as bare bones as we can run it.
You know, that's what we get when the board sits down and talks, just like Kathy's comment. I took those as, well, here Bill Clendenny named some things, we're gonna find out if he's true or if he's spreading false information. That's not what this meeting is about, to see what I'm doing. It's about trying to better this.
Well, that's
Who
not why
cares
I
who
brought
those
that up.
legislators are? I will find out for you for sure, but we gotta
would
talk
help.
about the issues, not talk about certain board members giving misinformation, this and that. Let's get together and talk about it.
I don't know where that feeling's coming from, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry,
get that.
I'm sorry, Bill, that's not the intent. I wanted to know so that I can contact these legislators. You have the information. You spoke just now and said, you have heard from legislators who say X, Y, Z. I'm just asking you to share that information with us, share that knowledge with us, so that we can advocate with or against what these legislators are saying. That's all I'm asking for.
I think what they're saying is good.
I know Plover went through an absorption of whiting a while ago, Don. Was that last 3 to 5 years? 2 years?
Yes. 2 years.
2 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, there are,
Cronenwetter or Rib Mountain or
yeah.
something like that.
I mean,
It's another
this
facility.
it's going on where the smaller departments are having more and more difficulty getting staff.
And-
So
and
they're
I-
having to move together.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I guess that's the only reason this is being brought forward, I guess. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm gonna do anything possible to keep this fire department as a volunteer basis. I've done it for 30 years. Probably one of the proudest things I've done in my life is become part of this. Every community is going through the process of figuring out how can you sustain a volunteer system. We've already proven that. I was the person that was the driving force in the mutual aid in the Saratoga area because we saw a deficiency during the daytime fire calls. Everybody is short-staffed. So we're already doing what we have to do in the one community where you have 3 departments servicing one community. We're making it work. Like I say, right now we haven't had the full-blown structure fire at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 1 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the morning. The day's gonna come that we're gonna be very happy to get the 2 guys from Rome and the 3 guys from Nakusa that are available to come up here. And that's all this is about. What are we gonna do to sustain the system that has been in place, that 90% of the country is served by volunteer fire departments? It's just, they're changing. They're evolving from people that are devoting their entire life to fire departments to people that are doing it when it fits into their schedule. Their schedules are conflicting with stuff. They don't make the choices that they did in the past. They aren't volunteering the number of hours. They're not committing the number of years to the fire department. Typically, probably for every 10 firefighters that apply here, we have a year and a half later, you're lucky if there's one of them still around. They won't commit the time that it takes to be on the fire departments. And that's what I'm saying. What are we gonna have to do to make sure that happens? There's never been one intent to ever consider having this be a full-time department. What are we gonna do to have a happy medium between what we have and the alternative of a full-time department? So they say, anybody that thinks that you can't afford a volunteer department couldn't even imagine what it would cost to have a full-time department. And I guess that's all I'm asking. I'm not gonna sit here all night and argue about it. If the board doesn't want us to look for the future and plan for the future, and the citizens don't want us to plan for the future, then we're okay with that. Just tell us that. If you want us to plan, we're more than willing to sit down. These guys, not that they don't already spend enough of their nights down here, I'm sure I will be able to have people that are willing to be on a committee to look at the future of this department, because it's that important to us. And I guess, I'm just
Patty,
asking,
you made
is the
some notes,
board
got
gonna
some
support
comments?
it? Is the citizenry gonna support it?
All right, Patty?
Okay.
Next on.
I think all of us getting together is a first great step. You're bringing a issue to the department or to the board. I like the idea of future planning. I don't like things that happen, last minute planning. I like to plan. I've always been that way, and that's how I run my household, and that's just the way that I am. One of the major things I am very concerned about is duplication of services. I don't think we need duplication of services in the area because of the fact, as you state, it's difficult to keep the smaller departments running efficiently because of people power, or even the equipment is starting to get more expensive. I think having the community agreements is a very good thing that we have going for us. I would like to see us to plan the revenue that we get from these agreements. I would like to see that forecast of how we're going to spend it. One of my first things that I thought about was the ISO rating. I don't believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe the type of equipment influences the ISO rating. I don't believe you have to have a ladder truck or whatever in order to achieve a greater ISO rating to save the residents insurance payments on their property. I think the response time and that type of qualifications is what intensifies the better rating as far as ISO, but I know there's a lot of different things that contribute to a good ISO rating. I think that is important for our area to have a good ISO rating. But some of the things as you were mentioning, what does the board plan on doing? Or what do we want? I guess my question is, we need to have several more meetings actually to gather our information to determine what kind of trucks are needed in this area. What kind of personnel qualifications are required for the training, you know? How many people do we really need in this area in order to have the qualifications needed, and what type of training do we want to put into these people that do come, because it is quite expensive to train. There's a lot of expense to that. So, and then, as you said, once we do our training, how are we gonna keep them here? So those are good things that we have to decide as a group, I think. But it can't be decided today, or as far as our, you know, what does the board want to do in the future? I think we need to discuss this in several meetings before we can come to you and say, what do we plan on doing? Because we don't have all the stats in order to determine what do we want for the community. So
I think you got some valid points there. What I'd like to also add is, you know, we need to give them direction as to where we are. Do we want to continue to meet the, is it NAFPA? NFPA standards, which is the National Fire Protection Services. We want to adhere to that plan and policies that they've directed as much as possible. We need to talk about the different types of equipment and why one type of piece of equipment is valuable in fire saving. And I'll just touch on a ladder truck, just because you mentioned ladder truck a minute ago. That the ladder trucks in years back was not so much important to get on the houses. Now a lot of the homes are going to steel roofs. Makes it extremely difficult for a firefighter to get onto that. Many of the homes in Grand Rapids are now 2.5 story houses. We see the lake development area building pretty high houses. They're narrow and high. We have facilities such as Mid-State Technical College. We have many churches in the area that the ladder trucks are the only real viable way to fight a fire. The classic example was the small building that Carpet City was when that went up in fire a number of years ago. There were 3 ladder trucks trying to fight that fire and putting as much as water on it. As I recall, the fire chief saying a while ago, we almost drained the beer and water tower, plus hauled many thousands of gallons out of the city to finally get that fire squashed. So the ladder trucks are an extremely important piece of equipment, especially when you have buildings that side. But that's the things that we have up against us. We know we have pieces of equipment that are nearing their rating to be retired from their main service rating. So, we need to move relatively soon on replacing equipment. As much as we hate to say it, the money comes in from our contracts. Someone needs to get into the pot to back into the equipment, because that's primary needs are going to be equipment over the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. Other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. I guess a lot of the equipment and so forth that we have here, we keep talking about saving town property and stuff, but most of our equipment, including that ladder truck that we have out there, is more for the firefighter safety also. I mean, the new construction out there is totally different. It may be stronger, it's engineered, designed great, but under a fire load, it's a whole lot weaker than rafters and 1x6s and 1x8s that they had on there. And, a lot of the equipment and a lot of stuff we're looking forward to is got a lot to do with firefighter safety, plus, saving the town property that's out there, lives.
On that note, you really have to delve into that home construction a lot deeper. I don't think what the average citizen realizes is that if you had a fire burning for like 10 or 15 minutes in an old 50-year-old farmhouse out in the town of Grant, we could go in that house, we could breach into that floor, we could go halfway, we could go 20, 30, 40 feet into that house, and we'd be in okay shape. Look at your new homes, all those floors are that synthetic, what do they call it, J-joist? That stuff is good for about 3 minutes under a fire load. You cannot breach an interior firefight in these new homes like you could in the old homes. So the need to get up and over the structure or breach the structure somehow safely is a whole different ball game than it was 20, 30 years ago. Like I said, if it's an old home, it's got good, sturdy, all timber construction. These new homes now, everything is synthetic and glues and plastics, and it's a whole different animal now.
Perfect example is the fire on Griffith Avenue in February. One of the newer houses today, that house is gone. That house was still standing until last month, until they tore it down. And we were able to actually go in there at the end when the fire was knocked down and salvage some things out. We need safety. Safety is how we do our job and go home to our families.
If that was a 5-year-old house, it would have been nothing but a pile of ashes.
Mr. Head?
Thank you. Hey, Grand Rapids is a cheap place to live. We got a $140,000 assessment, and we pay $40 a month for taxes, local taxes. My wife pays $60 a month for cell phone. We pay $200 a month for cable TV. Besides the board, the best bang for the buck I get in the township, I think, is the fire department. And I don't know what the heck it would be if we didn't have these volunteers and the service we got. And, if it would disappear, how would we replace it? We'd probably have to hire somebody to do, we couldn't afford it, probably. Well, we probably could afford it, but anyway. Hey, we need a plan. I guess I was kind of surprised to hear that we didn't have a plan, maybe we do got a little plan, but we need a plan, and we need a plan with more than the fire department. We need the whole township, everything the township has, we need a plan for. We need a fire department, we need a plan for the board, we need a plan for the police department, we need a plan for the roadways, we need a plan for replacing our infrastructure, and we should pay for it, and we should get a good one, and we should keep it dynamic, and we should present it at the annual meeting, and we should vote to change it, or expand it, or whatever.
Thank you, Ron. One of the things that we have done, and it may be behind the scenes, is the firemen know when about time this equipment needs to come up. And that's where we're coming to now. We're getting close to that period where the mainline vehicle needs to go into secondary service. We're close to that. So that's why we're starting to plan, look at which type of truck is the best for us to do it, and that's where we're at. As far as the board planning for buildings, Bill I believe it was Bill that said we ought to be having a 5-year plan on our buildings, or a 10-year plan. I don't want to put words in Bill's mouth or whatever. But, we talked about that, but buildings are a tough thing for a board to say, I want to spend $300,000 or $500,000 on a new building. It's really tough. We are taxpayers too. So, we go with the best we can. We try to keep the rate down, and your taxes is right on line with mine. Is $40 a month, and I spend more on that in coffee at McDonald's when I go to work.
And that includes garbage pickup.
Well, the garbage pickup, are you adding that into? Yeah, it's only $12 or $13. So, Frank.
One thing, if I may, Patty mentioned that, to do a 5-year plan or a 3-year plan is gonna take meetings after meetings after meetings. You hired him to run this fire department. Have him come up with a 3 and a 5-year plan and submit it to the board. That's what he knows what to do. He knows how the fire department runs. He knows everything about, well, I can say everything, 90% of what's going on to the fire department. You guys should just look at what he submits to you. You guys shouldn't be telling him, hey, we want this, we want that, we don't want this. He should submit the plan to you. That's what you hired him for. That's what he's supposed to do, and he'll do it. Say, hey, I want a 3-year plan, a 5-year, a 10, and a 20. Have him put it together and submit it to you guys.
And who are you?
Frank Camerata. That's what his job is. That's what he knows how to do. He can do it. He can pretty much, this thing here is a verbatim for our town. Why would you have to have meetings after meetings? That's why nothing gets done. You people sit around and freaking BS all the time. We'll have a meeting, hey, let's schedule another meeting.
Frank, we do not just sit around and do nothing, I'll tell you that.
But
How many meetings would you have to do something like this, you think? Just guessing.
well, I think we did
When you have someone that you hire.
we did proposals a while ago that South of Saratoga wanted a proposal to them for services based upon a satellite. And I think we put that information together in about 4 meetings, Kathy? Didn't take long, but
Okay, 4
But-
meetings out of what time frame? 6 months?
there's Jeannie, I'm sorry. It, period of 4 or 5 months, we had a deadline of at the end of the year, so we started in May. We didn't have to rush into it. Now, as far as the responsibility of what really is in here, I don't profess to know what should be in a 3 to 5 year fire department plan. I wouldn't profess it, I don't know how many of the board members would be comfortable saying this. I might have an idea of an item or two, and Patty might have an idea of an item or two, but we could submit those to the officers, because you guys are the long and shorts of it, and have you think about, well, is that a good idea or not a good idea? I mean, that's the way I would maybe
I know.
take a stab at it. Kathy?
When we started our strategic planning process at the health department, we had several individuals involved with identifying what they felt were core values of the department, what they felt should be key components of the strategic plan. And then it was a smaller group who then worked on that and said, this is how we achieve those values. These are the goals we could set, these are the strategies we can use. I would mostly agree with Frank. I think there could be involvement there should be involvement from a group of individuals, community, board, across the board. But once those core values are narrowed down, not even necessarily identified, but narrowed down or identified, then that's where I would agree with Frank, that the chief and his officers could be working on the strategic plan itself. And the chief could present that back to the board, and we could be looking at it then and providing additional input to their suggestions of how what strategy they're going to use to reach a particular goal. If we don't see that as fiscally responsible or doable or whatever, that's when we would start to provide additional input. But I'm not a firefighter. I wouldn't know where to begin to try and tell them how they can achieve that goal.
Dan?
Boy, I agree and disagree with a lot of what you said, Frank. But first of all, I think it's a partnership. I think we need to work together. Yeah, Don needs to be spearheaded and that because he does have the expertise, but this town, we work together. It's not us against them. It's not just propose it, I am not done. It's not, you present it to us, we yes and no it. No, this is kind of a combination, let's work together, let's get it together. And yeah, you're right, Kathy. When it gets to a point, it's gonna be up to these officers who are very dedicated, all of them are my good friends, and who have put tons of time into it. And I think together, we would come up with just an excellent plan. But the second point is for you to sit out there and tell us that this board gets nothing done when you're not at every meeting is totally inappropriate and wrong. We get a lot done up here. Maybe you don't see it.
All right, we'll move on. I don't want to get into the back and forth here. I do take criticism from time to time that I feel is undeserved, and sometimes I give it the other way too, so. So, other thoughts? Steps forward, how do we go?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if this is a public safety committee to start with, but I guess, as much as I appreciate the confidence in me, I agree with Dan, that was my whole point. It doesn't pay for me to waste hundreds of hours sitting in office, writing a plan, if the board isn't gonna support it and the community isn't gonna support it. I've got other things I have to do than to just sit and make a bunch of paper. I can plagiarize this, I can change the names in here, I can intermix a whole bunch of them, but if we can't figure out what's gonna solve the problems, is the key. I mean, if I knew what it was gonna take to get 25, 21-year-old guys to walk in this door and get through the schooling and stay here forever, we wouldn't be sitting here. That's the whole problem. It's not that simple. It's not that simple to fix the problems that we have, and it's gonna take a lot of heads to do it. We're not gonna solve it overnight, but, like you said, I guess, I will, put one point forward. If you're gonna tell us how to operate a fire truck and which fire truck we need to know, I respectfully expect you to have the background to know that. We all know why we have, what we use it for, and it's there for a reason. The majority of it, like Mark has said, is for firefighter safety. And if you don't have the background, we went through this 20 years ago with the neighboring community, that their board was gonna dictate to us how many trucks we could send out on a fire call, because they're paying by the truck per hour. And I guess at that time, the board and the fire department said, you, as a board, aren't gonna dictate how we're going to operate. We're not gonna send one truck out when we need 5 and jeopardize the safety of the people that were there to start with. That's our goal, is to ensure that we have a fire department, that we ensure that every one of these guys goes home to their wives and their families at the end of the day. And, you know, it's gonna be a long process. So I guess if we start out with the Public Safety Committee and a joint committee between the fire officers, some community members if they wanna be involved, that's what it's gonna take. But we have to figure out how we're gonna do it. What are we gonna do to attract people to be a volunteer? What's it gonna take to get people in the future? Do we need to get working with our employers? Do we need to reach out to the employers of the firefighters we have? You know, it's easy to there's already legislation that dictates if Mark responds to a fire call prior to his work shift, his employer legally cannot hold it against him if he is late for work or misses work. Same thing as you're talking jury duty or stuff like that. There is legislation in place. But the thing is, we sometimes need employers to allow their employees to leave work. What's it gonna take to sit, you know, are we gonna have to sit down with the employers and explain to them the importance of allowing Mike or Bob or anybody on the fire department to leave work so they can come and take care of this duty as part of their civic duty to perform their firefighting roles. There's a lot to this, and like I say, it's not gonna get fixed overnight, it's not gonna get fixed in 6 months. But, you know, I'm just asking how we get started at it.
Who wants first?
Go ahead.
Okay, when I was talking about helping to decide what piece of equipment, I'm not saying that I know what piece of equipment to use, not at all. What I was envisioning is that we would sit down and say, we need this piece of equipment because we have these type of buildings, blah, 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 this type of environment to have to, and so it's stated down on a piece of paper so that 5 years from now or 20 years from now, when we're looking at that piece of equipment, we can look back at this and say, we purchased this piece of equipment because at this time, 20 years ago, this was our environment. Now, 20 years later, we're gonna replace that piece of equipment. Are those attributes still viable in this community? No. Okay, we don't need to replace that piece of equipment. And that's where I was going with that. I was not saying at all that I knew what type of equipment to have in the fire department. And another thing too is, we're gonna have, right now, the whole community, all the leaders of the community are trying to figure out how to keep young people to this area. That's just, the majority of the young kids that are living in this area, once they graduate from high school, they wanna go. They have to go almost because we don't have a lot of the viable jobs. So we're gonna have that problem of not having young people. But if we can help figure out the problem, you know, to keep young people here in this community, that would be great. So those are my 2 other comments.
Okay, Dan?
I agree, Don. I think it's gotta be public safety and the chief and the department in general. But also, we have some really good templates right around us. We mentioned tonight up by Rim Mountain and over at Plover and that. We can tap into the knowledge of those guys. We don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. You know, we can, and they'll tell you what's the good parts, what was the bad parts, do this and that. And so we have a huge jump on maybe what they did. I don't know, maybe they did get the same thing, but I think it's definitely, and it's the whole picture. You know, it's Buren, it's Saratoga, it's Grant, it's trucks, it's secondary stations, you bet. I mean, it's all one big apple. And I'm all for it.
Yeah. And we're a long ways from saying that we have a fire department every 3 miles.
Yeah.
You know, we have a Buren Fire Department, closest fire department to us other than City of Rapids, which is a different animal, is City of Nicosia. You know, we don't have the luxury of having the fire department after fire department. Going to the east, our closest fire department is Plover.
Over in
You
Plainfield.
know, we have some long distances we have to encounter. And like I said, when you see what our coverage area is, you know, I'd love to take everybody for a ride and go out through the town of Grant and show you how far out we cover.
It'll be dark before we get back.
Go faint. So,
Yeah,
it'd be a nice bus trip to run our borders once.
Judy, Kathy?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'd like to kind of make a suggestion. You've got a good plan, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's a good plan, but I'm saying you've got a starting point. And it might be something for the first meeting, whenever you guys get together again, to have gone through each member of the committee, or whatever you're gonna be called, have gone through this paragraph by paragraph, and marked yes or no. Whether you agree with it, whether it's something that pertains to our department. And use that as your starting point. Go from that point on and look at some of these other departments and see if they've got something. Don't try to take 4 different strategic plans and put them all together at one time. But if you start going through it paragraph by paragraph, you might be surprised of how much you've already got done. And then to put your, you know, the individual things that we need in, could be a way to start.
If you look at this plan, I can almost guarantee you it was drawn up following the guidelines from the VFIS, which is our insurance company. You know, that is who our insurance carrier is. That's who, you know, this is their guideline for doing the exact process. And like I say, there's so many similarities to this, to what I read in this, and I'm guessing they followed this. You know, they are nationwide, that is what they do. They insure fire companies. So yeah, I think between the 2 documents and, you know, like you say, this community is very closely related to ours. You know, when you look at number of fire calls, how they operate, stuff like that, size of it, except they're in Ohio, so.
I think, you know, as we also in kind of the researching then of fire departments that start to work together, we came across one, was it Spencer something? What was the name of the town where they had a fire department for the township, and a fire department for the Sparta, Wisconsin, and a fire department for the village.
There was a parking lot.
Parking lot in between them. They ran 2 separate departments. Okay? Well, they finally came across themselves to think that maybe we ought to just have one. And that's some things that we need to do. We need to talk about all that stuff, so I guess, was there any other discussion? Otherwise, we'd take a motion to start the process to the Public Safety Committee.
I will make a motion.
Motion by Dan to,
To start a committee that, working with the fire department on a strategic long-term plan.
okay. Motion Dan, second.
I'll second that.
Kathy? Any further discussions?
I guess I would like to have it scheduled for, you know, schedule it as a meeting a month or something,
Sure.
you know, so we don't go 7 months in between.
Will it be as a?
Can't wait till after the election. Yeah. No, we start meeting, we'll try to meet once a month,
At least.
at least, yeah.
And maybe we can try and coordinate the meetings when the officers have, when you guys have your officer meeting, try and make it more collaborative.
That would be swell.
So the motion is to refer this to the safety committee, is that what the motion is?
At this point.
So, the other.
Other discussions I should ask for, go ahead.
Yeah. So, other board members that are not part of the safety committee would not be able to,
Not saying that. I think the public, I would tell the Public Safety Committee to allow all input
Oh, yes.
and all
you would.
discussions.
And I have, when there's been public safety meetings, if anyone has a question and they raise their hand, I acknowledge them during the meeting, I don't do anything prior to the meeting. If it was 100 people sitting out here, that might have to take a different format.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, I would
rules would apply.
absolutely
Yeah,
welcome
you know,
input from anyone.
And don't wait for the meeting, I mean, if you got something before, let us know, give us a heads up. So we
I think that's, what I'd like to, it's a running under the course of the Public Safety Committee, but all board members, all public could join in. We'll see if we put a little blurb out to the public and see if we get some interest from any of the town residents to even pop in, start working with us. All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye, any opposed? Motion is passed, all right. Item 4 is to review changes suggested by attorney for the request for proposal document for garbage and recycling pickup and approve list of vendors to send the RFP document to. So basically, committee sat down, got pretty much put together, and then as we always do on these type of things, asked our attorney to take a look at it. And he came back with some suggested changes. And so I'm guessing that's what Bill and Patty, you wanted the board to approve the languages, or did you have other changes you wanted to make? Go ahead.
I will make a motion to approve the changes that the attorney made.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Okay, the motion has been made and to make the changes that the attorney made, and are you also incorporating the list to send the RFPs out to Bill? Is that what you're
Yes.
also referring to? You want your motion to indicate that?
Yes, please.
Okay, and second agrees? All right, any other discussion?
I would like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
And in the email that I had sent you guys, I had said that after having talked to our insurance people, they had suggested the $1 million insurance policy with a $1 million umbrella, which was a change that I made compared to what the attorney made. Is that what is part of?
Yes, I agree,
Okay.
because that's what's on here, is,
Right, okay.
because that's the way they do it, correct?
That was what she said is the general practice.
Okay.
And why that is so important is the fact that when we have talked to a vendor, and they said, the price for residential pickup depends upon the insurance you want us to carry. So I thought that that was important, that you come up with that one, and I thank you for it.
Okay,
Very good.
I got a question.
go ahead, Dan, question?
That August 11th date, is that still,
Enough.
sufficient time?
Sure.
Is it? Okay.
If they get it in, they'll have it in the mail by Monday or Tuesday at the latest, which is only the 21st. It gives them a couple weeks.
Okay,
They know how much they need.
does it? All right.
Well, I'm sure they do. I mean, I can't believe that Advanced Disposal wouldn't already know whether they have to increase their rate in order to cover their costs.
And one other comment, Patty did ask me what I thought the surcharge rate starting at $4.20, if that was a fine rate. I did double verify fuel costs based upon each year for 2011 to 2014 ranged from $3.80 a gallon to $3.91 a gallon. So there's basically only 11 cents a gallon difference in the last 4 years of fuel prices, even though we get spikes up and down. But overall average is fine, so going up to 420 as a base, and I assume that was probably our base back in the last contract, Bill, is that
Yes, it
correct?
was.
Okay, I still think that's a fine base to start with, and it leaves us 20 to 30 cent typical change before a surcharge would kick in. All right, any other discussions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
What did the attorney have to say? Do you know about performance bond? That was, I don't know if he responded.
What he added was the performance bond shall be for the purpose of ensuring compliance by the contractor with the terms of the contract. So I'm taking that to say that if you feel that they are not performing their contract, you can do something and get that performance bond that they've had on.
Yes, that'll probably be termed in the contract.
And then he also
We want to
put-
make sure it is.
Yeah, and then he also put, however, the board may, in its discretion, waive the requirement of the performance bond
Okay.
to cover you if you want to play around with it.
And then final question was, with the request for proposal, the comment in regards to including but not limited to, why was that?
Because it's,
I understand
no, he's just saying that it's an
Incomplete.
incomplete sentence.
Right.
It grammatically, it's wrong.
Okay.
So if you read my version,
She straightened it, you straightened it out.
if you read my version, which is following there should be a cleaned up version. I cleaned up the paragraph to be grammatically correct.
Okay, gotcha,
Right.
okay. That's it then. my
Anything else?
question.
Let's get this contract going.
Right.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Hey, last item on our agenda is operator license applications. We have 3 applicants, I believe, and one has been recommended to be denied because of falsely reporting information on their application.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the 1-year operator license application for Maria Contreras, Elizabeth Dembski, and Taylor Pettigrew, and to deny the application for Debbie Christensen.
Second that?
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? And just for a point, if the party that is denied, if it does pass, they have the opportunity to either wait 6 months and reapply or ask for a meeting with the board of directors with the board, I should say, in closed session to discuss the reasons why the form was incomplete. So there's an opportunity for those. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion adjourned by,
Patty?
seconded by
Kathy?
Kathy. You're too late.
Where's this JR, where is that? Oh, where-
Speak easy.
where-
Speak easy.
Oh.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.